Hello, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I apologize. I logged in the wrong role and I was unable to start the webinar on time. I hope a few of you are still with us. We will record this and it'll be available on our platform to view. I apologize again. Today, my name is Ezra Gottheil. I'm the principal analyst for TBR's devices and commercial IoT practice. I will be joined by Eric Costa, an analyst in our practice, to talk about the current state of the PC business, current and future state, in a time of rapid change. We'll be talking about what the situation is now, basically 2020, what the situation is likely to be soon, basically 2021, and what the situation is likely to be after 2021, 22, and beyond. The big word in 2020 is demand. The demand for PCs is gone up quite a bit. This is unusual in the PC world because PC user base is constricted to population of people with certain kinds of tasks, certain amount of money, and even when the IT business is hot, the PC business doesn't grow very quickly because it has to adapt on a new user basis. With the pandemic, we've seen something different here. We'll talk about the supply chain under the current circumstances. And then we'll talk about how form factors are being affected in the current situation and going forward. And then I want to talk a bit about increased appreciation of PCs, appreciation by buyers, appreciation by users, and appreciation by basically me and Eric. I think that's a big factor in today's presentation. Let's talk about demand and the peak in demand. And
Thanks,
I'm going to hand it over to Eric Costa to talk about demand.
Thanks, Ezra. So I'm going to discuss the PC market demand a little deeper. We're going to start by reviewing three main categories that have formed as a result of the pandemic. So we have work from home, learn from home, and play from home. We have the work from home users that are able to effectively do their jobs from a home office, many of which didn't have a PC prior to the pandemic, or if they did have a PC, a lot of times it was a desktop and now require a notebook to be able to work remotely. We have the learn from home environment, which is almost completely new users, which consists of students of all ages requiring devices to be able to communicate and conduct classwork remotely. This could be a tablet, a PC, Chromebooks are extremely popular here. Prior to the pandemic, the majority of these students did not have a device to learn remotely, meaning most of these are net new to the PC industry. And lastly, we have the play from home aspect where users are stuck at home and not able to get out of the house as much as in the past and are turning to devices to entertain them. This again includes PCs and tablets, and specifically is causing a spike in demand in the gaming market. We're seeing premium gaming PCs continue to sell very well throughout the pandemic, especially in the last couple quarters. And on the other end of the play from home spectrum, we have the younger side. Many kids are stuck at home and parents need a way to entertain them while they attempt to work from home themselves. For example, I have a 2-year-old that has learned to basically love the iPad and any other device that can stream her shows over the past few months, as both myself and my wife are working remotely out of the house, and we have to find ways to entertain her. So the second bullet on demand is employment. Basically, PCs go one per employee, and the pandemic has driven that to be more like one remote capable PC per employee. And while the pandemic has devastated many job markets and caused a lot of unemployment, both in the US and on a global scale, the fact is that we have mostly retained employment in the PC using half of the economy. So therefore, as long as nothing drastically changes and there isn't a big pandemic-driven shift from what things already have have become, the PC employment is going to continue to drive demand. The next one, we're going to break down the demand into how the new PCs are being purchased. That is, we either have refreshes, duplicates, or new users. From a refresh standpoint, this is where a user either just wants or needs a better PC, or the current PC they have is not up to the task of handling whatever work or educational requirements the user needs it for in the new working remote environments. From the duplicate standpoint, this is what I was saying earlier, when you may have a computer at the office but needed a duplicate PC to operate from home. Say you have a desktop that isn't very mobile at the office, and now you require a notebook to effectively set up at home, whether it's at a complete remote environment or semi-remote role. And finally, from a user standpoint, this is where the total available market is being expanded, where new users that previously did not have a PC are entering the market. New users is the area that is making the PC vendors the happiest out of all these demand drivers, but I'll hit more on this in a moment. First, I want to talk about the ecosystem, and when I refer to the ecosystem, I'm talking about attached services and any PC-related revenue. This includes services, monitors, keyboards, cameras, speakers, etc. These all have, all these attached services and accessories continue to see strong adoption to support these remote environments that have popped up. This also includes things like office desks and chairs, as the pandemic has accelerated short-term demand for things like this as people threw together home offices in bedrooms or living rooms if you didn't actually happen to have an office location in your home. And it's worth noting that all of these devices are generally high-margin devices in the PC-related revenue area. So next we're going to talk about the total available market, or TAM. So some of the largest PC vendors have been talking about this for a while. Specifically, Lenovo keeps calling out a growing TAM, including in its latest earnings call earlier this week. Ezra and I also believe that the total available market is expanding due to the pandemic, and we have a major trend we want to discuss. So my first point is about the transition to one keyboard per person. The market used to be more about one keyboard per household, with other devices such as tablets playing a larger role. People used to share their computer between family members. The pandemic has greatly shifted that need to the point we are seeing this one keyboard per person trend basically has quickly come into fruition over the past few quarters. The result is new users that I talked about last slide that increase the total available market. And this is a big deal because it's hard to increase the PC TAM because PCs are tied to individuals, not something more flexible such as IT budgets. The new remote environments have basically led to a trend where if you need to use a keyboard for work, school, or whatever else, you now need your own keyboard device. You can't just be relying on trying to share from one family member to another. So for people with some disposable income, PCs are really quite inexpensive for how important they have become. It's worth mentioning that obviously some families can't afford one keyboard per member, but for the households that have disposable income, we are seeing a large increase in additional available market in the PC market. So this one keyboard per person could also be two keyboards per person in some cases, such as areas such as education, where you might have one PC at home and another PC at school. So the next point is on lasting change. And we believe this new expanded TAM will endure. That is, the new users entering the market will continue to be users and will eventually replace their PCs down the road. And newly eligible users, meaning new young people that are now old enough for keyboard devices, will also be included in this expanded TAM. So what's the big question? It's how long does this TAM expansion last? It's not how long will these new people still need PCs, but more how soon will we have delivered PCs to most of the new market. And we believe that at some point soon, the supply is going to meet the current demand. By our estimates, this could happen as soon as later in 4Q20 or possibly in 1Q21. And at this point, demand will decrease quickly unless and until we have a rapid global economic recovery. But at this current state, that seems a little ways away still from happening. And lastly, the implications. So what are the implications? Once this current surge of demand subsides, there will be a lull in demand growth until we hit a refresh cycle for the current crop of PCs. But this likely will take a few years as everyone just purchased a new PC in 2020. So we're going to see the PC market potentially decelerate growth for sure and potentially go into a decline during 2021 ahead of all of these devices needing to be refreshed within a couple more years. I'm now going to pass the mic back to Ezra, and he's going to discuss form factors.
Thank you, Eric. So what we've seen in the new surge and the new demand is an increased appreciation for the PC. We've seen not just recently, but over the last decade or so, some real convergence on a number of kind of flagship form factors. The notebook has emerged as the prime platform in this space, and there are a number of types of tablets and types of uses that are relevant in this new market. And then there's desktops. So this is in part a personal appreciation. That's a picture of the keyboard of the IBM PC, which was introduced a little more than 39 years ago, and I got one for my work literally days after availability, and it was quite an amazing thing. But 39 years is a long time for the evolution of a product, and what we now have is it's definitely a PC. It's a direct descendant of the original PCs, but it's quite a sophisticated tool that many more people can use effectively. The first one is that there are tasks that the PC does that other things, tablets, smartphones, paper and pencil, you name it, do not do as well. And those tasks are, clearly creation of content, particularly text content, and now more recently graphical content. There's quantitative analysis. There's what we're doing today, transmitting information. So the PC has inserted itself into a lot of the day-to-day tasks, both in being productive at work, being productive at school, and even in playing. And what has happened is because of our increased sophistication of both hardware and software, the number of tasks that the PC does has increased drastically. So many of those tasks the PC does better than tablets or smartphones. Back in the early days of tablets, there was a lot of talk of tablets replacing PCs, and for some users it does. Basically, our analysis at the time indicated the tablet replaces a PC for people who are using the PC primarily for tasks that are best done by a tablet. Content consumption is the obvious one of those. The key to this whole thing is the keyboard. The keyboard is an input device with unique capabilities, even for those of us who were not taught to touch type. It's a more consistent, precise, higher throughput kind of input device. Very, very useful for many tasks, and as a message to companies making streaming boxes, that includes typing in search terms. there have been many improvements in PCs over the years, and many improvements over the last 10 years. This train of thought was unleashed by a tweet that Michael Dell posted about how 10 years ago people were saying that the tablet would replace PCs, and look at us now, and I certainly echo that impression. One of the things that happened is that the PC learned from the tablet. So the improvements in the physical PC are enormous. Um, the screen is improved many times over. For portable PCs, there's real portability and very good portability. For portable PCs, there's great battery life. We'll go into some of those things, and it's been an enormous improvement in the software, in its reliability, in its power, its ease of use, and its ability to help guide the user into using it. That has led to the PC having a place in the world where it is expected, and it's a universal and important tool. One of the areas, again, relating to tasks, is there are many more applications for PCs. It used to be almost entirely text creation and quantitative analysis and some data retrieval and eventually some presentation creation. Now we're looking a lot more at communications and collaboration and working to, and what we're seeing in the pandemic is the PC is the tool to work together when you can't be together, and these new applications are absolutely facilitating that. So I want to specifically talk here about the modern notebook, the modern mainstream mid-range to upper thin and light notebook. It is suited to these tasks where the keyboard and touchpad or mouse are incredibly useful and much more useful than the kind of finger and glass keyboard you see on tablets and smartphones. We have evolved to where that factor, the classic mainstream keyboard notebook with a keyboard and matching screen, is very well suited for a lot of tasks we perform every day. And again, I say this, now includes a lot of very important communication collaboration tasks. We've reached a point where thinner and lighter would be nice, but we've gotten pretty darn thin and light to the point where picking these things up, moving them around, carrying them around is almost no burden at all. And there's some real constraints on making them any thinner and lighter. Making a keyboard that's responsive when it's thinner than in the thinnest notebooks is hard. It's hard to downsize the external dimensions other than thickness, because you want the size of the keyboard and you want the size of the screen. So we're reaching a limiting case on thin and light, but we've reached a very reasonable case with that. There's certainly some new form factors, foldable, bendable, all kinds of things that try to stretch a little more capacity out of a smaller size. But the mainstream clamshell is a tremendous piece of technology. One of the things that was learned from tablets is the importance of battery life. Basically, without day-long real battery life, you're carrying around this lovely thin and light clamshell, but you're also carrying around this fairly heavy, thick, ugly, and tentacled power supply. Being able to cut loose of the power supply is enormously important. Basically, what all these things do is remove the barriers to using the PC to accomplish things. You spend less of your time attending to the hardware and the software in front of you, and more time to the task on which you're working. Fast start has been enormously important. That was accelerated a great deal by the solid state the arrival of solid state drive, which improved the PC in a number of ways, in performance and in durability to an enormous extent. But being able to be up and working very quickly is very important, and that is an area where the tablet taught the PC a lesson, and we're seeing some real acceleration in that. The new Intel Evo standard calls for even faster starts to the point where we're beginning to say this is good enough. This is virtually instant. The touch screen, even if it's not the primary interface like it is in a tablet, the ability to manipulate things by touching them and moving them, dragging them, lowers the barrier to use, makes it work much better, and has another interesting benefit that comes out of the introduction of tablets. If you're conditioned to touching and dragging, then having a screen that doesn't allow you to touch and drag can sometimes be a disappointment. This consistency of response is an important part of the suitability of the notebook PC, the classic clamshell. And finally, the more modern means of what user authentication, they feed into that fast start. The new facial recognition with infrared sensors really makes the PC up and running almost as fast as you want it as you open it up. That just drops barriers to having it with you, opening it when you need it, and putting it away when you don't. It becomes a much more effective sidekick and companion to the tasks you're performing. When we talk about tablets, we really have two major categories of tablets. The first is the mainstream tablet, to which a keyboard is an adjunct but not a necessity. These are the things that were introduced about 10 years ago. These are the things that are great for content consumption, and that includes entertainment content, but it also includes commercial content. It's good for reading as well as for watching videos and clearing emails. The next class of tablets, and the first class are almost entirely iOS and Android. There are very few Windows tablets around these days that are not expected to come with a keyboard, and that's the second class. The tablet with a keyboard is an essential piece of the package. Most often these are Windows, and indeed we treat Windows tablets as PCs, whether or not they come with keyboards, because mostly they do, and mostly they're bought as a one-to-one substitute for a PC or a one-to-one real PC. Essentially, a Windows tablet with an accompanying semi-attached, detachable keyboard is a PC. There are disadvantages, I think, to this form factor. The biggest of which is the larger footprint, the kickstand, and the setup time, and a kind of flexibility and lack of rigidity here. You cannot do with even the best of these tablets what you can do with a modern notebook. Just flip it open and you're up and running. And frankly, the tablet version of the Windows operating system, however much it's pretty good for what it does, it's pulling off a tremendous trick, being a single operating system for two different form factors. It's just not up to a pure tablet OS. The one player in here where there's kind of a in between is the iOS, the iPad Pros and Airs with the Magic Keyboard. That is a keyboard that gives away some thickness, lightness, and thickness and lightness, and it's a certain amount of rigidity. And the rigidity makes it a much more adaptable keyboard screen combination. So Apple went a different way, and this, of course, is the only way you're going to get a keyboard device from Apple with a touch screen. So it's a little bit of an in-between, and I admire the approach, but I still think that a PC operating system is more adapted to the PC tasks that people do with them than the iOS system, with a pretty good solution to the keyboard problem. And then we'll get on to desktops. In 2020, what we've seen is an acceleration of the decline of desktops in terms of the percentage of PCs that are desktops versus the percentage of PCs that are notebooks. We've seen some migration in the form factors in desktops, where the all-in-one that was very popular for a while is falling in popularity because people want more flexibility with their displays. And there are a segment, and many desktops are very, very small. The ones that attach to the back of the display now replicate some of the advantages of the all-in-one without some of the disadvantages. They're more flexible. They can be upgraded separately from the display. They accommodate other displays more easily, and so on. And at the other end, you get user modifiable or third-party modifiable PC in workstations and in high-end gaming machines. And those boxes you can put a lot of stuff into aren't going away. But we're seeing real convergence on a number of form factors in PCs in general, and the main one is the classic thin and light upper half of the range notebook. That is a highly evolved design. So let's look forward to what we expect to happen in 2021. And here's where supply and demand, supply meets demand, and we see a real shift. So we expect to see increasing supplies. We've seen increasing demand over the year, and we've seen a scramble by all the vendors involved, not just the PC vendors, but all the vendors to PCs to bring that supply up. And pretty soon we're going to be supply meeting demand. And what happens then is you get saturation. And my belief is that of the people in the world who are adding those PCs, so there's one PC per keyboard user, once this surge in demand for this year under these circumstances is met, we will have saturated that market. And that market will not grow at the same time that other markets that picked up early in the pandemic, commercial-led consumer by quite a lot, have satisfied their needs. And we're not going to see a resurgence in commercial growth, and we're going to see a real decline in consumer growth until we have a real radical rebound. And much as I hope that happens in 2021, I'm not counting on it. Because here we have a recession, and we have a recession that has been confined to certain segments of the economy. We know what they are. They're travel and retail and entertainment and oil and gas and things like that. Those are important components in the economy. We are seeing upswings in other areas. We're seeing upswings in a lot of cloud services and IT. We've seen a lot of upswings in areas not related to that. But the net effect has to be a dragging down of the economy. And we've seen a recession. Even though we saw a rebound in GDP this quarter, it's not to where it was before. The fear I have that I think will lead to potentially a deeper and broader recession is that governments will not continue with the high level of deficit spending they've brought into place with the pandemic. We saw austerity, global austerity, slow the recovery from the 2008 recession, and I'm afraid we will see that again. And under those circumstances, one of the things that happens is PCs that were in the past in use in commercial settings are no longer needed in those commercial settings. So I expect in a situation where we face economic uncertainty, where we face in a lot of businesses reductions in revenue and in many cases reductions in headcount, there will be a movement toward what will be an increasingly robust resale and reconditioned marketplace. Because some of these PCs that were bought in reaction to this crisis, are quite new and clearly adequate for the tasks. And under those circumstances, I see 2021 and still see it as being a pretty bad year for PC vendors. Beyond that, well, we see recovery, and we'll see recovery in a generation of PCs that have some more capabilities. If I could say what would be the new capability that would drive a refresh, I think I would probably enter into private consulting arrangements rather than announced it here, but clearly one area is increased intelligence of the PC. From a hardware point of view, that probably means putting some AI silicon in the PCs, but the real utilization lies in getting the software people involved. So a lot of things that are done with PCs that could benefit from massive application of AI. Basically, what's happened with PCs is they're intelligence multipliers. They allow you to do more. And of course, when we can do more, what do? We do more. We handle a lot more correspondence. We view a lot more documents. We create a lot more documents than we ever could have without the PC. And that in turn creates all kinds of retrieval problems. So retrieval for emails, retrieval for files, organization of emails and files, ways of sifting through them to find what you want. I see those all as avenues that can be explored in the addition of intelligence to a PC. Whether that will require a new PC depends on how much they utilize uniquely new hardware. And again, I think the play here is in AI chips. AI chips are now pretty common on smartphones, and I expect them to be pretty common on PCs pretty soon. And that will be a differentiator against the previous generation. We think the TAM expansion continues. The people who needed keyboards aren't going away. They're going to need keyboards, and as younger people age into being able to use a keyboard, they're going to arrive as well. However, because the TAM expansion occurred over a short time, the refresh cycle on that TAM expansion is going to be a number of years away going forward. Again, unless we can develop some innovative new differentiating products that drive a refresh. What we do see is increasing ability to handle multiple devices, and in this case, I even mean multiple PCs. If you use them a lot, they're not too expensive, and if you're in a system where what's on each individual PC doesn't count so much because you're using cloud services, you're using software licenses that apply to multiple devices, all of which is moving forward at a rapid rate, then I can see that where costs are not terribly constrained, and even where they are, when one of your devices is a drastically less expensive one, I can see the more than one PC per user, and that's an area for some TAM expansion. That's a long, hard slog, but it will work. And I expect to see improvements beyond what I talked about those solutions. I think natural language has not been well utilized in PC interfaces, and I think it's an area where we can see some real expansion there. I think we have seen how all of the collaboration and conferencing programs could be improved. They are being improved as fast as they can. And we see the PC being much further integrated into everyday people's lives, working, learning, and playing. So that will drive this multiple PC trend. So we do see improvements going forward. That concludes our presentation. I apologize. That was pure user error. I logged in the wrong role and couldn't start the webinar. My bad entirely. Thank you for those of you who have stuck with us, and I invite you to post questions on the Q&A, and Eric and I will attempt to answer them. No questions. I hope people are still listening. Okay, thank you all very much. Another apology. I'm sorry for wasting your time. Have a good morning, evening, day. Thank you very much. Goodbye. I do have some information to give you. This podcast is available. Follow up with me or Eric or both of us for any questions. Please fill out the survey that is on the screen. And a replay version of this webcast will be available after the event and will be sent out to you via email. And to see a list of our upcoming and past webinars, please visit our our website, tbri.com. Our next, I don't have the right next webinar. Thank you very much.